Hi, and welcome back to Reddit Terrible Stories. I told my partner's family they couldn't come to our wedding uninvited. When Alex and I first started planning our wedding, I thought the hardest part would be picking the venue, the food, or the playlist. I had no idea that the real nightmare would come from something that seems so simple on the surface: the guest list. Alex's family was complicated. Unlike mine, which was relatively small and self contained, his family tree stretched across cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends that his parents still considered basically relatives. The problem wasn't just the sheer size, it was the entitlement. From the very beginning, his mother made comments like, "Oh, we'll need at least 10 extra seats for the cousins from Florida," or "Don't forget your Uncle Jim's best friend, he'll want to be there." At first, I thought she was joking. Who invites their son's uncle's best friend to a wedding? But no, she was completely serious. She treated our wedding like it was some kind of public family reunion instead of an intimate day meant for us. Alex and I had agreed early on that we wanted a smaller wedding. Neither of us liked the idea of hundreds of people we barely knew crowding into the room, eating our food, and taking up space on what was supposed to be one of the most important days of our lives. We wanted it personal, meaningful, surrounded by people who truly mattered to us. That meant trimming the list ruthlessly. We decided on about 70 people, total close family, lifelong friends, and a few colleagues who had been there for us through thick and thin. But when Alex broke the news to his family, it did not go over well. His mom gasped like we'd told her we were eloping in Vegas. His dad immediately started arguing logistics, insisting the venue would obviously have more capacity. And his sister? She outright laughed and said, "Good luck telling everyone they're not invited. You know they're going to show up anyway." At first, Alex tried to mediate. He told them gently but firmly that it was our wedding, our choice, and that we weren't going to extend invitations to people we didn't know or didn't feel close to. But instead of respecting that, his family doubled down. They acted like our wedding was a community event. His mother even told us at dinner one night, "I already told Aunt Patty she could bring her 3 neighbors. They're just dying to see the ceremony." I nearly choked on my food. Neighbors? Of an aunt I had met maybe twice in my life? That was the moment I realized we had a real problem. It wasn't just about numbers anymore. It was about boundaries. Alex's family saw our wedding as theirs to shape, and they had no intention of backing off unless someone drew a line in the sand. And since Alex hated conflict with his parents, I knew deep down it was going to fall on me to be the one who said it out loud. I didn't want to start a war. But every day the tension grew thicker, and I could see how much stress it was putting on Alex. We were supposed to be enjoying our engagement, celebrating our future, but instead, we were constantly arguing about guest lists, seating charts, and whether or not his family would just show up with their uninvited extras. One night, while Alex was venting about how cornered he felt, I made the decision for both of us. "If they try to come without an invitation," I said firmly, "I'll tell them they can't. No exceptions." Alex stared at me like he couldn't believe I had the guts to say it, but I meant it. I wasn't going to let anyone bulldoze us on our own wedding day. And as fate would have it, I got the chance to prove it sooner than I thought. It started with a phone call on a Wednesday evening. I was chopping vegetables for dinner when Alex's phone lit up on the counter. It was his mother. He groaned, put it on speaker, and I knew immediately this wasn't going to be good. "Alex," she said in her brisk, no-nonsense tone, "I need to confirm how many plus ones you've allowed." Alex gave me a helpless look. "Mom, we already went over this. There aren't plus ones unless it's a serious partner." She ignored him completely. "Well, I spoke to Aunt Patty today, and she said she and the girls are bringing their friends. I told her it was fine." I put the knife down and wiped my hands on a towel, my blood pressure spiking. "That's not fine," I interjected before Alex could stammer out his usual half-hearted protest. "We never agreed to that." There was silence on the other end for a moment before she said in a cool, patronizing tone, "I wasn't talking to you." That hit a nerve. I wasn't about to let her dismiss me like I was just some side character in Alex's life. With all due respect, this is my wedding too. If someone isn't on the guest list, they're not invited. I could almost hear her bristling through the phone. "Sweetheart," she said, voice dripping with condescension, "you don't understand how family works. You don't exclude people. That's rude." "Actually," I shot back, my voice sharp, "what's rude is assuming you can bring whoever you want to someone else's wedding." Alex was frozen, his fork halfway to his mouth, watching this play out like a spectator at a tennis match. His mother's tone shifted from cold to downright angry. "So, you're telling me that when family shows up at the venue, you're going to send them away? Embarrass them in front of everyone?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "If they aren't invited, they don't get in." There was a sharp inhale on her end, followed by a clipped, "We'll see about that," before she hung up. The kitchen was quiet except for the faint bubbling of the sauce on the stove. Alex finally set his fork down and rubbed his temples. "You know you just declared war, right?" he muttered. "I didn't declare anything," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was pounding. "Your mom declared it the second she decided to rewrite our guest list without asking us." Over the next few days, word spread like wildfire through his family. Suddenly, I was the villain in everyone's story. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were texting Alex about how controlling I was. His Aunt Patty posted a passive-aggressive status on Facebook about how sad it is when brides forget weddings are about family. Even his sister called me directly to tell me I was power tripping and that Alex should get his balls back. But the real test came the following weekend, when we had dinner at his parents' house. I went reluctantly, knowing what was coming, and sure enough, as soon as we sat down, his father started in. "Look," he said, his tone calm but his jaw tight. "This family has always done things a certain way. We don't exclude people. If your mother's cousins or your aunt's neighbors want to come, they come. That's just how it is." "No," I said firmly, staring him down. "That's how it was. But this isn't your event. It's ours." Alex's mother slammed her hand on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "This is not just your day. It's our family's day, too." And there it was, the root of everything. They didn't see this wedding as ours. They saw it as theirs, something they had a stake in, something they could control. I straightened my back, looked both of them in the eye, and said the words I knew would cause an explosion. "If anyone shows up uninvited, they won't be allowed in. Period. I don't care who they are." The silence was deafening. For a moment, I thought maybe they would calm down. But then his mother's face twisted with fury. "You'll regret this," she hissed. And from that moment forward, I knew she was going to test me. After that dinner, things went quiet. Too quiet. For a while, I thought maybe I had actually scared them enough to back off, but deep down, I knew better. Alex's mom wasn't the type to accept defeat. She was the type to retreat, regroup, and come back swinging harder. It started with little hints. Alex got a text from his cousin Amanda saying, "Can't wait to see you guys on the big day. Should I bring a +1 or nah?" The problem? Amanda wasn't even invited. When Alex asked his mom about it, she acted innocent. "Oh, I must have mentioned the wedding, and she assumed." I didn't say anything. But I wasn't stupid. These assumptions were too consistent. Over the next week, 4 more people who weren't on our guest list suddenly knew they were coming. One even asked about the dress code. I decided to test a theory. I asked Alex's sister, Melissa, point blank, if their mom had said anything about guest lists. Melissa hesitated, then blurted out, "She made her own list. But don't tell her I told you." I nearly dropped my phone. "She what?" Apparently, his mom had drawn up her own family guest list, a version of our wedding invitation that included all her cousins, her friends, and even some of her coworkers. She was spreading it around as if it were official. Melissa admitted she'd overheard their mom bragging on the phone. "Of course they'll be there. I'm the mother of the groom. I decide who comes." When I told Alex, he looked like he might throw up. "Please tell me this is a joke." "It's not," I said flatly. "Your mom has her own secret guest list." We tried confronting her directly. We called one evening and Alex asked point blank, "Mom, did you invite extra people?" Her tone was syrupy sweet, but her words were daggers. "Oh, honey, you're overreacting. I just mentioned the wedding to a few relatives. Naturally, they assumed they were welcome." "So you didn't tell them they weren't?" I pressed. "I would never uninvite family," she said, like the very idea disgusted her. That would be heartless. I could feel my blood boiling through the phone. So you lied to them. You let them believe they were invited when they weren't. And you expect us to just accept it? I didn't lie, she snapped, dropping the fake sweet act. I protected their feelings. If you two want to play the villains on your wedding day, be my guest. But I will not be responsible for humiliating people I love. Alex rubbed his face with both hands, clearly torn between his mother and me. That's when I laid down the law. Here's what's going to happen. We're giving the venue a final guest list with names. If someone shows up and their name isn't on it, they don't get in. No exceptions. His mother let out a sharp laugh. Oh, you think you can police my family at the door? Just wait until the day comes. You'll see who really runs this family. She hung up before I could reply. I turned to Alex. We need to talk to the venue, now. The next morning, I called the coordinator, explained everything, and asked if they could strictly enforce the list. To my relief, she said yes. Security would be instructed to only allow in the names we provided. I felt a little better, but there was still a pit in my stomach. Because deep down, I knew his mom wasn't done. If she had already gone this far, she wasn't going to just give up. She'd find a way to sneak her people in. And if I wasn't careful, she'd turn the whole day into a circus. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, one thought echoed in my head. She's planning something, and I have to be ready for it. The weeks leading up to the wedding turned into a bizarre cat-and-mouse game. Alex's mom stopped pretending to be subtle. Instead, she openly bragged to relatives that she had it handled. Every time we tried to tighten control over the guest list, she found another loophole to exploit. The first big warning came from our florist, of all people. She called me one afternoon, sounding confused. Hi, just checking. Did you want to increase the centerpiece order from 15 tables to 25? Someone claiming to be your future mother-in-law called to change it. My jaw practically hit the floor. No, absolutely not. Please ignore any changes from anyone but me or Alex. That night, I confronted Alex's mom again. Why are you trying to expand the table count? She didn't even flinch. Well, dear, we both know your list is incomplete. I'm simply planning ahead so there aren't empty seats when real family shows up. Real family? I snapped. You mean the 30 people we never invited? You're welcome, she said sweetly and hung up. I wanted to scream, but Alex grabbed my hand and said, We'll outsmart her. Don't let her see you crack. So, we doubled down. I called every single vendor and put a password on our account. Only I or Alex could make changes if we gave the correct code. The coordinator promised to keep security tight. We even sent out official RSVP reminders to only our invited guests, emphasizing that no additional +1s would be admitted. Still, the whispers kept coming. Melissa told us that their mom was encouraging her cousins to just show up. They can't turn you away. It's a wedding. One cousin even posted on Facebook, can't wait for the big family reunion at Alex's wedding. I was furious, but also weirdly impressed. His mom was treating our wedding like some kind of hostile takeover. Then came the tipping point. Alex's uncle, who was on the list, called me directly. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of family drama, but your future mother-in-law is passing around fake invitations. They look official. My sister sent me one, and it had your names on it. I swear my heart stopped. Fake invitations? Yeah, honestly, if I didn't already know you two, I'd think it was legit. Same font, same design. She must have gotten a template. I could barely process it. This wasn't just meddling anymore. This was fraud. When I showed Alex, he went pale. This is insane. She's literally counterfeiting our wedding invitations. That night, we sat in silence, just staring at the guest list pinned to our fridge. I finally said, We need to prepare for war. Because your mother isn't just going to show up with uninvited guests. She's planning an ambush. And that's exactly what it felt like. Our wedding day wasn't just about celebrating love anymore. It was about defending our relationship, our boundaries, and our sanity from someone who believed she had the right to control everything. We didn't know how far she would go. But one thing was clear. She wasn't going to stop until we stopped her. The fallout from the fake invitations was immediate. Within days, we started receiving calls and messages from people we had never intended to invite. Old family friends, distant cousins, even one of Alex's childhood neighbors, all thanking us for the invite and talking about how excited they were to attend. Some even asked about travel arrangements, dress code, and whether kids were welcome. Each message felt like a slap in the face. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach tightened. I didn't know whether to laugh at the absurdity or cry from the stress. I finally broke down and said to Alex, "We have to put out a statement, something official. Otherwise, people will just keep believing these lies." We sat down that evening and drafted an email and a group message. It read, "Dear friends and family, it has come to our attention that some of you may have received invitations to our wedding that were not issued by us. Please know that if you did not receive a formal invitation directly from our names, then unfortunately, you are not on the guest list. We apologize for any confusion this has caused. Thank you for understanding." It was polite, measured, and very clear. We hit send. The responses were mixed. Some people were gracious, replying with things like, "Oh, no worries, we'll celebrate another time." Others were offended. A distant cousin snapped back, "Why would you send an invite and then take it back? That's cruel." No matter how many times we explained that we never sent it, some people just assumed we were lying. Meanwhile, the whispers about Alex's mom intensified. Melissa confirmed what we suspected. Their mom had printed at least 50 fake invites and had been handing them out at church, at family gatherings, even slipping them into mailboxes. She treated it like her own personal event planning. When Alex confronted her again, she was shameless. "I was simply correcting your mistake. You'll thank me when you see how full and happy the room looks," Alex snapped. I had never seen him so angry. He yelled, "This isn't your wedding. Stop trying to ruin it." But she just looked at him like he was being dramatic. At this point, we realized we couldn't just rely on polite messages. We had to prepare for the possibility that uninvited guests might actually show up. So, reluctantly, we spoke to our coordinator about security. "Yes, we can arrange for a couple of staff at the door to check names against the guest list," she said. "But you need to understand, if your family members try to force their way in, it could get ugly." Ugly. That word stuck with me. I didn't want our wedding to devolve into a scene where people were being turned away at the door, arguing with staff, or worse, trying to storm in. But it was becoming more and more obvious. Alex's mom had set us up for exactly that kind of disaster. The stress took a toll on me. I couldn't sleep. I started dreaming about being trapped in a banquet hall with strangers piling in, eating all the food, dancing on the tables, while Alex and I were pushed into a corner, invisible at our own wedding. And as if that wasn't enough, the fake invitations caused another problem. Our vendors were confused about headcounts. Even though I had locked down the accounts with a password, some guests had mentioned numbers that didn't match our official list. The caterer called to ask, "So are we planning for 100 or 150? 100, I said firmly. "Do not make any changes unless I personally call." By then, I felt like every ounce of joy had been drained from the planning process. I was no longer looking forward to the wedding itself. I was dreading it, bracing for chaos, waiting for the inevitable explosion. And in the middle of all this, Alex looked at me one night and whispered, "Maybe we should elope. Just run away and leave all of this behind." The thought was tempting. But part of me knew that if we caved now, if we let his mom's manipulation win, we'd be setting the tone for the rest of our marriage. And I refused to let her dictate our lives. After weeks of stress, I realized I had reached my breaking point. I wasn't going to let Alex's mom or anyone else turn our wedding into a circus. If I had to be the bad guy to protect our day, then so be it. The next morning, I made a decision. We would create a master guest list that no one could argue with. I contacted the venue and the coordinator and gave them the names of every single person we had invited, along with their confirmed RSVP status. I printed 3 copies, laminated them, and handed them to the venue staff, the caterers, and Alex himself. "Only the people on this list are allowed in," I said firmly. "No exceptions. Not even family. Not even if someone says they're related to us. If their name isn't here, they don't come in." Alex nodded. He was quieter these days, worn down from constant fights with his mom, but he agreed that this was the only way. To reinforce the plan, we hired 2 security guards for the entrance. At first, I felt guilty. Who hires security for a wedding? But then I thought about the fake invitations, the entitled phone calls, the brazen disregard for boundaries, and I felt nothing but relief. If chaos came, at least we'd be ready. Of course, word got back to Alex's mom. She called me late at night, furious. "How dare you put bouncers at my son's wedding?" she hissed. "Do you know how embarrassing that will look?" "Not as embarrassing as having strangers crash our wedding because of your fake invitations," I shot back. She went silent for a moment, then switched tactics. "You're turning Alex against me. He would never do this if it weren't for you." I almost laughed. "No, he's finally standing up for himself. You just don't like it." I hung up before she could say more. My hands shook afterward, but for the first time in weeks, I felt empowered. Alex, though, wasn't done wrestling with his conscience. "What if she tries to make a scene?" he asked. "She's my mom. I don't want to humiliate her." I took his hand. "Then she shouldn't be doing things that put us in this position. This isn't on us, it's on her." Despite my newfound resolve, the paranoia lingered. I started imagining all the ways the situation could explode. Uninvited guests showing up drunk, demanding entry. His mom screaming at the guards and trying to push past them. Fights breaking out between family members in front of everyone. To calm my nerves, I spoke with our officiant and close friends, asking them to act as buffers in case things escalated. Everyone was supportive. "We've got your back," one friend said. "Don't worry, we won't let anyone ruin your day." Still, there was one thing I hadn't prepared for. The manipulation didn't stop at fake invitations. Alex's mom started calling relatives, telling them I was cold, controlling, and locking family out. She painted a picture of me as some kind of villain who had brainwashed Alex into cutting everyone off. Some relatives believed her. I could see it in their messages' short, clipped replies that hinted at disapproval. Others stayed neutral but distant. It hurt. Weddings are supposed to bring people together, but ours was tearing people apart before it even happened. One night, as Alex and I sat together in silence, I finally said, "What if we make a compromise? A small, controlled compromise. We could allow a few extra people, just the ones closest to her. That way, maybe she'll back off." Alex looked at me for a long time before shaking his head. "No. If we cave, she'll see it as proof that her tactics work. She'll just keep pushing forever. This is about more than just the wedding. It's about our marriage. We have to start with boundaries now." His words gave me strength. So we doubled down. The guest list was locked, the guards were hired, and the boundaries were crystal clear. If Alex's mom or anyone else tried to cross them, they'd be the ones making a scene, not us. But as the big day drew closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't finished. And I was right. The morning of the wedding arrived, and despite all the tension leading up to it, the day was beautiful. The sun was warm, the sky was a perfect blue, and the venue was glowing with flowers and candles, just as we had planned. For a few hours, I let myself breathe, telling myself that maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind us. The ceremony began flawlessly. I walked down the aisle, my heart pounding with joy, as Alex's eyes lit up at the sight of me. We said our vows, exchanged rings, and for that moment, nothing else mattered. The drama, the family battles, the months of anxiety, they all melted away as we became husband and wife. But then came the reception. Our security team was stationed at the front, checking names against the guest list as instructed. Most people came in without a problem. Laughter, music, and clinking glasses filled the air. I started to think we had over-prepared, that maybe all my worries had been unnecessary. Until I noticed a commotion at the entrance. From across the room, I saw Alex's mom standing at the doors, red-faced, arguing with the guards. Beside her were 3 people I didn't recognize, 2 women and a man, all dressed as though they had expected to be let right in. "They're family," she was shouting. "You can't keep them out. This is outrageous." The guards stayed calm, pointing to the laminated guest list. "Ma'am, their names aren't on the list. If they weren't invited, they can't enter." The room began to buzz as people noticed the confrontation. Some guests craned their necks, whispering. My stomach dropped. This was exactly what I had feared. Alex, seeing it too, muttered a curse under his breath and strode toward the entrance. I followed, my heels clicking sharply against the floor. "Mom," Alex said firmly when we reached her, "we've talked about this. Only invited guests are allowed. These people weren't invited." His mom crossed her arms. "This is my family. Your family. You're humiliating me in front of everyone by keeping them out. Do you even realize how disrespectful this is?" I couldn't stay silent anymore. What's disrespectful is sending out fake invitations behind our backs and trying to force people into our wedding. This isn't about family, it's about control. The three strangers shifted uncomfortably, clearly realizing they were caught in the middle of a power struggle. One of the women whispered, "Maybe we should just go." But Alex's mom snapped, "No, you belong here." Alex's voice hardened. "No, they don't. If they weren't on the original list, they aren't coming in. End of discussion." It was the first time I had ever heard him speak to his mother like that. She looked stunned, then furious. Her face flushed deep red as she hissed, "You've changed. She's changed you. She jabbed a finger at me. This is her doing. She's poisoned you against your own family." I braced myself, expecting Alex to hesitate. But instead, he said clearly, "No, Mom. This is our decision. You don't get to dictate our lives anymore." For a moment, there was silence. Then, with a dramatic gasp, his mom turned and stormed away, dragging the uninvited guests with her. The guards closed the doors firmly behind them. The entire room had witnessed it. People were whispering, some in shock, some in support. My heart was hammering, my hands shaking, but deep down, I felt a strange sense of relief. The worst had happened, and we had survived it. Alex turned to me, his hand trembling slightly as he took mine. "Are you okay?" I nodded, though my throat felt tight. "Are you?" He let out a long breath. "For the first time in my life, yes." The rest of the reception went on as planned, though there was a lingering tension in the air. Some relatives avoided eye contact, clearly unsettled by what they had witnessed. Others came up quietly to say they admired how we had handled it. And as the night drew to a close, I realized something important. Yes, the drama had been ugly. And yes, people might talk for years about the wedding with security guards. But in the end, we had drawn a boundary and stood by it together. That, to me, was worth more than a flawless, picture-perfect day. Still, I couldn't help but wonder, what would the fallout be after this? Alex's mom wasn't the type to forgive or forget easily. If this was her reaction to a guest list, what would she do once she realized she no longer had power over her son's marriage? The morning after the wedding should have been blissful. I had imagined waking up next to Alex, reliving the joy of the night before, scrolling through photos our friends had taken, and maybe even laughing about little mishaps like the cake leaning slightly or the flower girl tripping on her dress. Instead, we woke up to chaos. Alex's phone was flooded with texts, dozens of them. Some from relatives congratulating us and saying what a beautiful ceremony it was. But others, mostly from his mother, were pure venom. "I can't believe you embarrassed me like that. You let her control you. You're not my son anymore. You ruined our family reputation. How could you humiliate me in front of everyone?" Each message was harsher than the last, written like bullets, fired in rapid succession. Alex scrolled silently, his jaw clenched, then finally tossed the phone onto the nightstand. "I knew she'd be mad," he said, running his hands through his hair. "But this? She's acting like we personally attacked her." "She's trying to make you feel guilty," I said carefully, "because guilt is the only way she knows how to get control back." He gave me a long look, then sighed. "You're right, I just didn't expect it to be this bad." By lunchtime, the drama had spread beyond his mom. His cousin posted on Facebook about how weddings should be about family, not ego, which of course sparked a thread of comments that everyone knew was directed at us. One of the uninvited guests, the woman who had tried to slip in, made a passive-aggressive post too. "Imagine excluding family from your big day. Couldn't be me." It felt like a digital wildfire. Every time I opened my phone, there was a new post, a new rumor, or a new piece of gossip circulating about what happened at the wedding. People who weren't even there were suddenly chiming in, spreading their version of events as if they had insider knowledge. And then Alex's mom called. When the screen lit up, he froze. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer, but then he sighed and swiped to pick up. The conversation started icy. His mom's voice was sharp, full of wounded pride. I hope you're happy. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Do you know how many people came up to me afterward, whispering about how my own son wouldn't even let me decide who belonged at his wedding? Alex tried to stay calm. Mom, it wasn't your decision to make. It was ours. You went behind our backs. You forged invitations. You tried to sneak people in. What did you think would happen? There was a pause on the line, and then she snapped, I thought you'd have some respect. I thought you'd understand family is everything. But clearly, her voice dripped with disdain, has poisoned you. I could hear Alex's teeth grinding as he interrupted. Stop blaming her. This was my choice, too. Stop pretending I don't have a mind of my own. His mom scoffed. You don't sound like yourself anymore. You sound like her. That was the last straw. Alex hung up. His hands were shaking as he set the phone down, but his face was steady. I'm done, he muttered. I'm done letting her manipulate me. If she wants to keep making this a war, then fine. But I'm not going to play her game anymore. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that line had finally been drawn. But deep down, I knew his mom wasn't the type to just walk away. If anything, she would only fight harder now that we had proven we weren't going to bend to her will. Over the next few weeks, things only escalated. Alex's mom began calling his relatives one by one, painting herself as the victim. Soon, some family members stopped answering Alex's calls or sent short, frosty replies to his messages. At a family dinner hosted by his uncle, we weren't invited for the first time ever. She's turning them against us, Alex said one night, scrolling through his contacts with a bitter expression. It's like she's building her own little army. I put my hand on his. She might convince some people, but the ones who actually care about you, they'll see through it. Even as I said it, I wasn't entirely sure. It was exhausting living under the shadow of someone else's need for control. And though Alex and I were united, I worried about how long we could endure being at the center of this storm. Because if there was one thing I had learned about his mom, it was this. She never lost quietly. The months after the wedding became a battlefield. At first, Alex and I thought the storm would eventually calm down, that his mom would run out of energy, or people would get tired of hearing her complaints. But instead, she escalated. She couldn't stand that we had boundaries, and every attempt she made to regain control became more desperate, more destructive. It started with little things. Relatives we used to talk to regularly stopped answering our calls. A cousin unfollowed both of us on social media. A distant aunt sent Alex a cryptic text. I just don't know who you are anymore. His mother was poisoning the well, and every day it felt like the circle of people we could trust grew smaller. Then came the ambush. One Saturday, Alex's uncle invited us to a family lunch. He said it was just casual, a chance to catch up with everyone. Alex hesitated. He suspected his mom was behind it, but eventually agreed, hoping it might be a chance to patch things up. When we arrived, though, it was clear what the lunch really was. An intervention. We walked into his uncle's dining room and found his mom, two cousins, and an aunt already seated at the table, all with the same stern, disapproving expressions. His uncle motioned for us to sit, and as soon as we did, the attack began. His mom wasted no time. We're here because we're worried about you, Alex. You've changed. You're shutting out your family. You let her. She gestured at me with a sharp tilt of her head. Drive a wedge between us. Alex straightened in his chair, his voice calm but firm. No. What I'm doing is standing up for myself. I'm not a child anymore. I get to decide who's part of my life and under what terms. His aunt leaned forward. But she's your mother. Don't you think she deserves some respect? She lost that respect when she lied, manipulated, and tried to hijack our wedding, Alex snapped, his patience breaking. The room fell into stunned silence for a moment, but then his mom's voice cut through like glass. Do you hear yourself? You sound brainwashed. I raised you. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me? By humiliating me? By tearing this family apart? Alex's hands were gripping the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles were white. You're the one tearing the family apart. You can't stand not being in control, so you're punishing me for finally standing up to you. His mother's eyes flashed, and she hissed, If you walk out of here without making this right, don't expect to be welcome in this family again. The ultimatum hung in the air like a threat, heavy and suffocating. My stomach twisted because I knew what it meant. She was forcing him to choose his new life with me, or the family he'd known his entire life. And then Alex did something I never expected. He pushed his chair back, stood up, and said quietly, Then I guess this is goodbye. Gasps filled the room. His mom's face contorted in shock and fury. But Alex didn't waver. He reached for my hand, and together we walked out. The silence behind us was deafening, like the air itself had collapsed. When we got to the car, I could see his hands trembling as he gripped the steering wheel. He didn't start the engine right away. Instead, he sat there, breathing heavily, his jaw tight. I just cut them off, he whispered, almost like he couldn't believe what he had done. Yeah, you didn't cut them off, I said gently. You cut off her control. There's a difference. He turned to me, his eyes wet but determined. I don't know what's going to happen now, but I know one thing. I'm not going back. It was a breaking point, not just with his mom, but with his entire family dynamic. And as much as it hurt, as much as it scared us both, I knew deep down that it was necessary. Because if Alex hadn't drawn the line then, his mom would have never stopped crossing it. But I also knew this wasn't the end. She wasn't the kind of person who let go easily. And if she couldn't control him directly anymore, she'd find another way to strike back. The question was, how far would she go? For a while after the intervention, silence became our shield. Weeks passed with no calls, no texts, no random visits. Alex's mom seemed to vanish from our lives, and though part of me felt uneasy, part of me also felt relief. We could breathe again. We could wake up without checking our phones in dread. We could start talking about the future, about a house, about kids, about building something that belonged to us alone. But silence, as we learned, was not peace. It was preparation. It happened 3 months later. Alex and I were hosting a small housewarming party for friends. We had just signed the lease on our first apartment together, a cozy 2-bedroom with creaky floors and sunlight that streamed in through wide windows in the morning. We invited only close friends, people we trusted, people who had supported us through everything. Around 9 p.m., the doorbell rang. Alex went to answer it, expecting another friend running late. But when he opened the door, his mother stood there. She wasn't dressed for a casual visit. She wore her best coat, her hair styled perfectly, her expression tight with forced sweetness. And behind her, to our shock, stood 2 of Alex's aunts. Surprise, she said, her voice syrupy. We thought we'd come see your new place. I froze in the kitchen, a glass in my hand. The room went quiet. Our friends exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the tension even without knowing the whole story. Alex stepped outside, blocking the doorway with his body. What are you doing here? He asked flatly. Don't be ridiculous, his mom replied, her smile faltering. We're family. Family comes to celebrate milestones. We weren't invited, so we invited ourselves. Alex shook his head. This is exactly why we didn't invite you. Because you don't respect boundaries. One of his aunts tried to soften the situation. Come on, Alex. We just want to see the apartment. No drama. We'll be quick. But his mom's eyes betrayed her real motive. They flicked past him, scanning the inside of the apartment, taking inventory of who was there, of the life he was building without her. This wasn't about celebrating us. It was about reminding him that she still had the power to insert herself, no matter what he said. Alex took a deep breath. His voice was calm, but I could hear the steel underneath. No, you don't get to come in. You don't get to make demands. You don't get to show up uninvited and act like nothing happened. His mom's mask cracked. So what? You're really going to keep shutting me out? After everything I've done for you? Yes, Alex said, his voice shaking now. not from fear, but from the weight of the decision. Because love isn't supposed to come with conditions. You don't get to guilt me into giving you control. I'm done. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. His mom's face hardened, her lips pressed into a thin line. Fine, she spat. If that's how you want it, don't come crawling back when you realize you've made a mistake. She turned sharply on her heel, her sisters trailing behind her. The door closed. For a moment, Alex leaned against it, his head bowed. Our friends were quiet, respectful, giving him space. Then he straightened and turned to me. His eyes were wet, but his shoulders looked lighter than I'd ever seen them. She's never going to change, he said softly, but I don't need her to. I just need us. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him, and in that moment, everything else faded. The manipulation, the fights, the constant pressure. All that remained was the two of us, standing together, unshaken. That night, after our friends had gone and the apartment was quiet again, Alex and I sat on the floor of our new living room, surrounded by boxes we still hadn't unpacked. We held hands and talked about the life we wanted to build. A life defined not by guilt or fear or manipulation, but by choice, by love, by respect. And as scary as it was to know his mom might never forgive him, or that parts of his family might always believe her lies, we also knew one truth. We had drawn our line in the sand. And we weren't going to step back, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no even to family. And sometimes the strongest families are the ones you choose to build yourself.